Hello, hello. Matt Banker here with the Marketing for Accounting Firms podcast. And I have Erin Andrews on here today, who is not a marketer. She's the owner of an accounting firm that has worked with marketing agencies. So I wanted to have her on, and we're going to have a conversation. What does it look like for firms of different sizes to work with outside marketing partners? Could be agencies, could be freelancers. And it overlaps too with what do you do internally, when you hire people. So Erin, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I love talking all things marketing. Even though I don't do it, I love talking about it.
So you love marketing. You have an accounting firm. Give us a little background on your firm, especially in terms of when did you start marketing? What did you start with? And what's a little bit of your marketing journey, maybe up until this point?
Okay, cool. So our firm's been around for like 15 and a half years. I'm actually, and it's Straight Line Accounting and Advisory. I'm a second generation accounting firm owner. So my father is a CPA. He is still practicing. It's been about 42 years, I would say, for him. But we branched off and started Straight Line. And in the beginning, you know what marketing was like for accounting firm owners. It was just referrals. So whoever walked in the door called and you just took whoever. We didn't have like an ideal client or a niche established. But I would say that our journey started, when did it start? It was like 8 years ago, I want to say. So I got onto social media.
Pretty far in to the business. It wasn't something you were really focused on right at the beginning.
No, I didn't know. Yep. I guess I didn't know. So we actually joined an accounting association, a group, Rootworks, which I'm sure most people know if they're listening to this. I was not one of the original members, but they were fairly new at the time. So I joined that 11 years ago in 2010. And I think they opened me up to marketing and what was out there. And also marketing was a lot different still back then. So they were still they had like a marketing program. They were still doing things like direct mailers, it was really, I didn't really understand how to get names for a list. That was like your buying list, which I don't think that's a thing. I mean, there is a thing right now, but not the way we wanted. But I was always heavy into social media myself. So we had a social media page. And what I did was I actually outsourced our social media content to a local woman who did it. It was like right when social media started becoming popular for business. I want to say, maybe I'm wrong, but she just started posting like useful tips. So I always understood the concept that you have like give away value. If you give away value, that will help bring people because they'll just, eventually they'll trust you. And so we always consistently had social media posts. And I think our messaging was actually pretty consistent even back then, like with our brand and what we did. So we've started establishing a brand fairly early on as like a younger, not a traditional accounting firm. Even though I was coming off of my parents, they were much more traditional, but I think that really helped. And actually, because of all those posts on social media, I don't know if you know who Jay Baer is, but he wrote a book called Utility, and he used us as a case study. So I just was like, ooh, we're so cool. So I knew we were on the right track when I was like, give away value for free and it'll come to you. And we were like on Twitter's top 100 accounting firms to follow for things like that. So we started there. And then it was like, what year is that? 2022? I want to say 2018. I actually met an agency that was young. I loved the owners. They just spoke my language pretty much with what we wanted. And I realized that we needed some type of agency. I also do think I didn't have the right expectations and I didn't know what I didn't know, if that makes sense. So
I think that's really common that people don't. I mean, it's the same in your area. I think a lot of clients come to an accounting firm not really knowing what they don't know. It's the same in marketing. A lot of the firms we work with, they're not sure what they should be doing, why. A lot of times they don't even know what is all included in marketing. So it is a confusing area unless you have a lot of experience in it already. And you've already mentioned like 3 different channels, direct mail, social media, all this stuff can be marketing, but it can be pretty different in terms of how you might spend money or what you'd focus on, depending on your niche. And there's all kinds of things there.
Yeah. Actually, I do remember when I first started working for my parents, like 16 years ago, I remember we interviewed 3 agencies. And I remember they came in and they were like, we'll print these things up for you, we'll mail these things, but there was no like guarantee on return on investment. There was no guarantee of leads coming in. I just remember it and being like, okay, this is kind of crazy. You're going to spend like $30,000 on a marketing plan and you're not really going to have anything to show for it. I remember that. That's right. I forgot about that. I kind of blacked it out because we did want marketing, I guess, when I started working for them. But yeah, but I think we have almost always had someone doing social media posts, but I knew we needed nurture campaigns. We needed funnels. We needed lead magnet thingies, whatever they're called. I just didn't know how to do it. And I knew there was people out there that did it better. If I could go back now, I probably would change things on how we did it. We spent a lot of money. I would say we wasted tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands initially, because we just, I don't know, didn't have our shit together is the right thing, or I don't know. We just weren't in the right direction, if that makes sense.
Did you feel like and this isn't to throw any other agency or marketer under the bus. Did you feel going into that was an issue where you didn't know enough of what you wanted out of a marketing agency, or did you feel like you expected them to show up with more direction and plan for you?
I think it was both. So we would sit down and like talk about scheduling out our having a plan for each quarter, because accounting really is cyclical and you can 100%. Plan out around a quarter. I think I knew that marketing takes a long time. I understood that. I know it takes it's a long process. You can't expect overnight results, but I don't think I understood the process, if that makes sense, as well as I do now anyways. So we also try to jump into way too many things at once. Like we got Salesforce, we needed a new website, we were doing social media, we wanted an email campaign. It was just like a lot going on. And so I also wasn't focused on, I guess, priorities. So the agency is great. I don't think they were a good fit for us after a little while. I don't think I was the best client at first either, to be totally honest. So just like we have clients that probably aren't the best fit because they don't do what you're supposed to. I was trying to do too much, I think, with too fast.
From just like a personality approach to things, are you more of the type of person that wants to know and understand what we're doing, why we're doing it? Or were you looking for someone, and maybe this has changed over time, were you looking for someone who you could basically just say, okay, here's some money, now you do it for me? Or did you want to be involved in that process?
I definitely wanted to be involved because this is the kind of stuff I like to do. I am an accountant at heart, I guess. I love data, and I understand marketing really revolves around data. So that was really important to me, to see the data. The problem was, I guess I wasn't seeing the data because we weren't at a certain point yet. So it was really hard for me to understand like where our investment was going at first. So I want someone to tell me what to do, but I want to understand why I'm doing it. But they're the expert, just like my clients. Like I expect them to want to know why, but also take our advice. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does. And you mentioned data. I feel like reports and data are such a tricky thing in the marketing world, because the number one complaint I hear from people when they fire an agency is they just kept telling us everything looks great. The reports always looked good. But then when we looked at the bottom line, we weren't seeing any change in the actual like revenue sales numbers. And so we were left trying to piece together, okay, how does what we're doing connect with what we should expect in terms of actual results? Because you can't pay bills with likes and views and just pure traffic numbers. It has to correlate eventually to someone hiring you and sending you a check, and so there's a lot that you can understand to know, is this working or not? But there are a lot of ways that marketers can kind of I don't want to say manipulate they're not manipulating the numbers, but they're choosing what to focus on that may not actually be connected to business objectives. And so it looks good, even if it's not like doing good for you.
Yeah. So we weren't like seeing those like leads come in the results of it, but they were probably seeing, well, you're getting average website time on your website. It's probably really good. So eventually it'll lead into it. The other thing I will say is I wish we had really nailed down if I were them, I probably would have nailed down our ideal client and our niche much earlier and helped me focus it. I think they also kind of let me just, oh, Erin wants to do this, Erin wants to do that. But I do think, how can you focus, and we talk a lot about this because with my other business, but how can you really focus your marketing and your branding if you don't have a niche and an ideal client, because then you're spread too thin. So we were trying to market to too many people without a focus.
Yeah. If you don't have a niche, you basically are left with geography. And you're like, I'll work with anyone, and you kind of pick an arbitrary geographical
revenue number. And revenue.
But it's hard to, it's hard to identify, especially, so your firm, you were focused kind of in Massachusetts. Is that right, in terms of your customers
we were.
at the time?
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yes, at the time, Massachusetts.
So it's a big, there's a lot of people there. There's a lot of kind of overlapping areas. You don't have to work with someone from your city. There's a lot of the choices that your ideal, quote unquote, ideal customer has. It's not like you're in a small town where everybody knows the local accounting firm and they're just going to work with you because you're local. You're still competing, for a specific client in a pretty big area in a very competitive space. So it's hard to get in front of the right people, I would say.
Yeah. So if I guess if I was to go back, I would 100% ID my ideal client and my niche from the start, because I think you're just throwing money away by doing, any ad spend or whatever you're doing, so.
I think that's a really hard choice for a lot of firms who are basically generalist firms. That's kind of the big hurdle to jump over, is choosing that I'm going to narrow down who I work with, or narrow that niche in some way. There are benefits on the other side, but it's a hard choice for a lot of people to make.
And we could go into niche all day. Alex Hormozy says riches are in the niches. So there's so much benefit to niches, like niching down processes, employee training. Anyways, but we go on that for a long time.
So leading up to the agency you're working with now, how did you decide who to work with? I don't know if you want to go into did you know there was a point when you needed to stop working with the previous agency and make a switch? Did you make a switch right away, or did you take a break in between the two?
So no, we went pretty quickly, but so actually a lot of things happened in 2019? 2020.
Before pandemic or during pandemic times?
My God, I forget. So we had an internal person that was doing our social media content and things like just developing content and things like that. Because it's really I've found it's very difficult for an outside agency to develop content for a company unless they're in it. It's very difficult to personalize it. So to me, it's always been extremely important to have somebody that could do that internally. So that person left our firm, and then my sister actually came on in September of 2021. And at this point, we were having a lot of issues with that internal person that was there, and then also defining the line of what the agency does and what we do internally. That was a huge struggle. And so that's partially our fault. I think it was just, and then honestly, we just didn't have the best person that we were working with the other agency. So unfortunately, that's kind of what happened. But then my sister started in September of 2021, and she just turned out to be, she was really good at writing communications. She turned out to be amazing for content creation, social media, things like that, unexpectedly. And then we decided, we were always obsessed with StoryBrand, the Donald Miller. And I took his all day, 2-day course on messaging and branding. And the agency we were working with, they just weren't a StoryBrand agency, and they just didn't get it, I think. So we were trying to push something that wasn't their philosophy, I guess. So
you were bought into kind of a marketing philosophy after you'd already started working with this agency. They weren't really interested in coming along. So it's kind of like an alignment issue in some ways.
Yeah, right? Yeah, which is okay. They do their thing one way, and we do our things another way. So,
but you got to be, I do think you need to have that alignment with the marketing agency. You know, I have a way of approaching marketing that isn't a right fit for every client. And if they really want one thing and what we do is something different, it's like always going to end. It's not a long-term. Yeah. It's not a long-term solution.
So like, I guess when I said it was okay, it's okay not to, if they want to go do their thing and we want to do our thing, that's not going to work. We just found a storyboard agency. We just happened to get someone in Florida because that's where my husband and I moved. And they have been great. They understand, like if I say the lingo, they understand. I remember the first meeting I had with the owner or whomever it was, he was just, usually they sell the StoryBrand. And I was like, oh no, I could sell it to you. So he was like, well, you're just like a perfect customer for us because you're already doing the philosophy. That's the way we do things. So, but we also have they have a different role than we did with the other company too. And we really, really defined our internal person and then their role too. So that's been huge, which I wish we had done better with the old agency.
So what does that kind of look like at this point? What is your internal person doing? What do you rely on an outside agency to do?
So the internal person, who is my sister, she does all of the social media content creation, like basically everything related to that. She actually writes most of the emails that go out, the nurture emails. Then she works with the agency that we use. They're like the bigger picture things. So they helped us, our HubSpot. So we ended up transitioning from Salesforce to HubSpot. HubSpot was a disaster. So our biggest project was getting HubSpot. So they helped us clean up HubSpot, get that ready. And now that HubSpot's been all cleaned up and we're good, we established properties and all that stuff. They help us do workflows. And so like when my sister wants to do a nurture campaign, they help teach her workflows and all that stuff. They also we got a new website. They built the website and they make things talk between the two. It's all the higher level stuff that we really shouldn't know how to do because we're not an agency. And then they're there for just like with strategy for planning, and they write us blogs for SEO. They also maintain our SEO. So like I said, I don't think they could do content creation for social media, but they couldn't do it the way my sister's doing it. So
you got to break down from content. You break it into, you've got SEO content for the website and then social media content as the two main buckets of what you're doing. Yeah, it sounds like, well, I'll say a couple of things. One, that content piece is so important. Like if you're positioning yourself as a guide or as an expert within the niche for your customers, it's so difficult to outsource that expertise to a copywriter. And the way I think about it is basically a copywriter can go to Google and they can look up what somebody else has said, but they can't generate the actual like insights that an owner can have. And even within that, it's hard. I don't know how closely you're involved, or kind of upper level management people. It can be really hard to hand that off to a junior person as well. Most of the firms that we've worked with really struggle if they try to outsource their expertise to a person who doesn't have any. It just falls flat.
Yeah, I think we were very lucky because my sister grew up in the accounting industry. She is not an accountant at all. She's very smart, so she understands it, but she can also like listen in on something, and like she listens in on my sales calls. She sees our sales process. She sits on a bookkeeping calls. So she's like researching. The marketing agency, what they do is, like you just said, they just find the keywords and they probably just Google like an article to write, and they do that. I also think as a firm owner, I meet a lot of firm owners that are like, I'll have my admin do it and I'll give them ideas, or that's not, I don't know. You got to find someone.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably like 3 skills. It's like you have to have accounting expertise, you have to be a good writer, and you have to put yourself in the position of like the customer too. So you have to, and if you have 2 out of 3, you can probably make do with missing one of those. You go to other people for expertise, but if you only have 1 out of those 3 things, it can be really tough. We used to do a lot of content writing for our clients, and we've essentially, like in our firm, we've essentially cut that. We have a copywriter who can take content and turn it into articles, but we need a subject matter expert to be involved in coming up with the ideas and having a point of view and all of that, because otherwise, like I said, it kind of falls a little bit flat there. How Okay, can we talk about money a little bit?
Talk about
So
sure.
marketing is expensive, right?
Sure is.
And so other than jumping over the hurdle of like what's your niche, I think that understanding like what is a realistic budget for marketing, like how much should you put in, what are your expectations about getting out, and you don't have to get into tons of detail,
Yeah.
but how do you go about developing a marketing budget? Working with an agency is more expensive than
Yes, it is.
hiring a person in-house. How do you do that?
So, like I said earlier, we have overspent on marketing. We didn't have a budget. So we just knew we wanted to kick-ass marketing, right? Like kick-ass social media. So I will always always have a dedicated in-house person that at least handles and they're the coordinator with the agency. If you're just starting out, I think you need to kind of pick what makes sense for you. I don't know if you'd agree with that. I'm good on social media. I'm horrible at making posts. My sister is really good at that. She's really clever. But if you could find someone that's really good at that, and they can do, internally, that I don't think that's as expensive because you know what I mean? That's someone you can pay a few $100 a week. An agency, one of the main reasons why I really wanted an agency is because we use HubSpot and I wanted a really good website. Websites, as I understand it, are supposed to make you money, not just look pretty. So, and I wanted my messaging right. So we could have built something on Wix ourselves. I'm pretty good at technology, but I knew that wasn't what we want. So they have to maintain the website and things like that. So I think now that I know a lot more, I just like ad spend is different too. Like you need to have a budget so you have your agency. So we spend a few $1,000s a month on our agency. We were spending $5,000 a month on our agency plus our in-house person. So we were spending like $95,000 a year, which is like, I think about that now and I want to vomit, not even counting ad spend. So that was when we didn't know what we didn't know, I don't think. Now we're spending probably half that. It just depends. But I also would make sure that you have like your processes in place for when your marketing stops, that you can take on the client, that you're going to respond to the leads. So it's very time consuming. So if you're doing social media posts, there's a lead center that comes in that has to be managed. If you're getting, email nurture campaigns and you're getting emails back, you have to manage that, assign it out. There's a sales process involved. So I guess start slow and kind of just think what you can afford. I do think you can't afford not to do it if you want to grow.
Yeah. The number that is kind of always in my mind, if you don't have marketing, but you want to be aggressive, is that you probably have about $60K a year as your budget to start. And you can do two things. You can either hire a person and have them do a lot of those things. You might have a little bit of budget for some ad spend, or you can hire an agency, but you're probably not going to be able to spend, $6,000 this year and see your revenue double, right?
No. Like ad spend, so now that HubSpot's cleaned up, now that our sales cycle, everything's because it took us a while to get even our sales process and everything. They want our ad spend to be about $2,500 a month on top of everything else that we're spending. And that's what my old agency wanted too. So to me, that's normal. I think we're spending like $1,500 a month right now. We just started. So that seems normal to me. It's not cheap, but it can.
No, it's not. I mean, when you're hiring it's in-house or out-house. You're outhouse, outside. That's a better word. But you basically pay 3 times is what I tell people. You pay for the ideas, and so you went out and you found an agency that had good ideas. They were aligned with you on messaging, using StoryBrand as the framework. They can come and help you direct the strategy, and so you pay a certain premium for people who have better ideas about marketing. Then you pay for time, and you either pay in time where you do it and someone on your team like uses the hours to get it done, or you pay someone else to do the work, the actual tasks of setting up funnels, workflows, writing, posting social media, all of that. And then you pay the platforms, which is the distribution. You have to pay Facebook or LinkedIn or Google, wherever you're putting that content. And not every marketing strategy needs to do paid content. There's all kinds of little things in there, SEO, or there's kind of technical things that you almost always have to outsource. Some things you can do with an inside person. But I don't know if this makes sense. The other kind of recommendation I usually give people is an agency. So like any person probably has 3 out of the 12 marketing skills that would be really helpful. Like they're designing websites or being a designer, writing for social media. There's like this whole list. Okay. If you have a person inside, they probably have 3 to 4 skills that they can do. And so it's not realistic to hire an in-house marketing person, expect them to do everything. They're just not going to have the capacity. No. But if you hire an agency, they'll have that whole list, but they're going to be like 3 times as expensive as the person. Yeah. So it's a trade-off for sure. So you hired a person first, or you've always had kind of a person.
We've always had a social media person, and like the person that she did custom posts for us, but they were generic in a way that worked for the time that it was. And then we've had an in-house person. I mean, but like we're everything we need. So like even internal emails to clients, communication, I just had to have somebody, like even the office is closed. So how do you launch new products and services? You have to make it look pretty. How do you announce a new staff member? Anything like that. But the return on investment over time for what we're spending, I mean, it's going to pay off.
Yeah.
As long as we're consistent with our messaging and we are consistent with follow through. I used to make the mistake. I'm charge of sales of not getting back to the people, which was, stupid. So you're literally throwing them out. You're like, well, what's the point of marketing if you're not going to reply to the sale? I've learned my lesson.
So it sounds like there's kind of still talking money a little bit. There's kind of an increase. There's like you usually spend a lot at the beginning of a relationship, especially with an agency. And then over time, like it can taper off a little bit. And what I found is even with good agencies, most of the time, what you need from them becomes somewhat less over time because you get the processes set up, you solve the big problems, your internal people maybe are taking over some of those things. It's kind of 2 questions. One is what kind of metrics are you looking at in terms of deciding, is this working? Or how do you decide every quarter, yes, we're going to keep doing this for our marketing. We believe it's an investment. And then I don't know if you have any thoughts on how would you know if it was time to change things up for marketing?
So we just started getting reporting because everything just got finally set up this past June. So I guess if we're doing like email campaigns, it's open rates and conversions from there. We are also heavy, like I said, heavy on social media. So we get a lot of email addresses from being parts of groups and giving like free tools away. So once we get them in, how many of those do we convert to leads? And then, sell them, obviously dollar amount. I guess like from a super technical, now that we have the SEO, because the SEO blog just started in July or August, so probably a lot more data in a year. But seeing how those are coming up on the all of the dashboards, the Google stuff.
Yep.
I think I would give it probably a year before I really, unless it's like you're getting 0, really made a decision to stop something. Because I think it's as my husband always says, the flywheel has to start spinning and then eventually it goes. Yeah.
It's really hard to restart things, like to start from scratch. And I think a lot of firms go through a process where it feels like they do a thing for a little while and then they cut it to 0 and they have to start over, and it feels like a long slog to build back up to something that feels like it's really working.
Well, even our presence on social media, that even though we're so present, it took a really long time, but now most of our business comes from social media. Like even we'll have we got a client from social media, they'll repost something we posted, and then that person that's following them calls us. So that took, we've been on it for years, and it still takes a long time. But yeah, I always get so like frustrated with any business owner, I guess, that says, well, I tried this and it didn't work, so we stopped. And I'm like, well, you have to give it time. You have to give it time. It's not going to work overnight. I guess that's the one thing I've always known from the start. You have to give it time.
I often think about it as like there's stages, and the first stage is setting up, and you basically have no idea if it's going to work or not. Then you got to give it I'm going to say minimum of 90 days for almost any new initiative. And at that point, you're really still just looking for positive signals. Like, do we get a couple comments? Do we see, one person a quarter even coming in through the funnel that we have set up? Like, that's a positive signal and says, yes, it is. Like, it is working how it's supposed to. Now we're going to test it and we're going to try to improve it or get it dialed in so it works better. And then it's after 6 months that you can start saying, all right, well, now that this is working, let's pour on the gas and, maybe do more. But if you just go through those first 90 days and you're like, well, I only got one lead out of this new system, that's a lot. It's a lot of money to invest up front for a system that you commit to for a pretty short amount of time. And then you're going to start over and you're going to have to spend a bunch of money again. on everything.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing that I have learned about myself is I don't really want to be somewhere where I'm not comfortable or I am not like on a lot. So for me, Facebook is big. Like, I am on Facebook. I'm sure a lot of people in their 20s are rolling their eyes, but that's where I am. My sister is huge on Instagram, and she's always like, go on Instagram, da-da-da-da. So I also think if you're doing social or whatever, you should probably choose something that you're comfortable with, but you also need to find where your audience is. Because if you have to force yourself to go there, I think it's really hard.
Yeah.
So?
And I'm definitely a LinkedIn person. I know that's where there's a lot of business owners are there, accounting firms. If you don't have a social media platform that you're active on, but you want to be, I'd recommend LinkedIn for most firm owners, because that's probably where a lot of the clients, at least a critical mass of them. But we know there are certain industries that just aren't on LinkedIn and they are on Facebook. Like you said, you have to find who's your ideal client, because it doesn't make any sense to spend a bunch of money on Facebook if no one's there, or LinkedIn if your audience isn't there. So you do need to know those sorts of things.
Like if your ideal client is influencers,
you
got to go where the influencers are. Yeah, exactly. So ours are contractors and a trade. So they're it's just where you can find them.
You're a more established firm. You're bigger. You've invested in marketing in the past. You have growth aspirations. What would you say to the smaller? You kind of started talking about this a little bit, but the smaller, let's say it's a 4-person firm who is saying, okay, we want to grow. We want to turn into, we want to get to that 20-person head count and have a cool office and whatever else. And we know it's going to take marketing. Like, what are the baby steps that you would say that they need to start with?
I would say get your brand. Like, you don't want to have like a confusing brand. So like your messaging should be super clear. I'm sure you'll probably love this because it's StoryBrand, and what you sell and offer and what problems you solve. If you can have that in like on a website, like a very clear space, exactly what you do, that has been huge. So there's no confusion about what you do. That's probably, I don't know if you agree with that.
Well, I always say there's no point in spending money to send good traffic to a bad website. Like that's kind of a waste. And it's not that website is the be all and end all, but it's kind of ground zero for, like, it's the first impression people have of you. It's if you ever get a referral, that's where people go. And if they're confused at what you do, who you work with, you're definitely losing money at that case. Even if you have a great referral network, improving your website can lead to, I think, an increase in conversions, from that referral network.
Because I've been on other people's websites and I'm like, I don't really understand who you help or how you help them, or even not even this industry and other industries. I'm like, I don't know what this person does. So, so just make that super clear. And then I think you have to start getting in front of people. So if you haven't ID'd a niche, we've already talked about this, you should probably have a niche, but figure out how to get names and emails so that you can start adding them to an email list, even if you're just using something like MailChimp, just to start emailing them and get in front of them. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the selling myself as a marketer role in some ways. Yeah, I mean, I think a website is a place to start. developing an audience. If you develop an email list, it's something you own, right? You could develop a lot of connections on LinkedIn, and they could change the algorithm or switch the way that they like put out content, and it could really hurt you. But an email list you basically own forever, and you can take it back. What we're finding is it is harder to get people onto email lists now than it was 5-10 years ago, because we all get inundated with spam. But if you have ways, you can join organizations, you can be a member. Again, if you have that niche, you can be a member of an organization, and you can get the email list, and now you've got a list of warm leads. And email is still a really powerful channel if you can get them onto that list.
Well, I'm also a huge fan, especially if we keep talking about niching, but like if you can host a webinar, like start giving value out for free. We did a ton of that during COVID with PPP and stuff like that. If you join that association, offer to do free webinars for the members. You're going to get lists. You're going to get people trusting you, or go to your local chamber of commerce or something like that. Yep. Kind of I would start out with what's reasonable and what you can do without like studying Instagram algorithms or something like that. Because I don't know them. My sister somehow figured out the song thing, the audio thing on Instagram, and like what's coming up. That's wild. But yeah. Or if you have maybe you're you have a kid that wants to be involved and they're really, really great at social media, bring them in, I guess, and have them just start posting. I guess. You got to pick a channel, and I think you do have to get active. I think it would be probably the biggest mistake, we talked about this earlier, is an assumption that you can just ask someone else to do it for you. Accounting, it is a trust business. It's a credibility business. And so business owners do want to hear from you more than they want to hear from, a bookkeeper on your team, or your kid. But you got to get the technical, get the stuff out there too. And so if you have a person who can shadow you and who can be the person putting in the time to do this stuff, then that could work really well as well. Is there anything else you would tell an agency owner to just avoid, or what are kind of the pitfalls that you wish someone would have told you, 15 years ago? I would like a very thorough plan of just writing out what you want, what you want at the end of what the goal is of your firm, and then align your marketing plan towards that. So just because you say, I want to grow in revenue by 25% this year, what does that mean? How many clients does that mean? An average of what? In what industry? How are you going to get that? That's definitely something. I guess don't do something you're not super comfortable with. That's just what is this? If people are DMing you on Instagram and you're not on Instagram, that's not going to do anything. So, but the plan is I think aligning on the same plan, because then you can really prioritize what you want to do and when you want to do it. I would think. Does that sound like a good idea? I mean, it sounds, as a marketer, if I come in to work with a firm and they don't really know who their customer is, what their goals are, what they're trying to accomplish, it's really hard for me to put a number on that of okay, so how much is that worth to you? You know, if they say, we just want to grow, it's an ambiguous thing. It's hard to say, well, okay, would you spend $50,000 a year, this year to, quote unquote, grow? Well, you probably are going to need a number that, grow by how much, what is that? What does that look like? So the more a firm owner understands who they are, what they want, are you building a lifestyle business? Are you looking for, a lot of folks these days are trying to offload tax only clients and just get small business clients because tax season is terrible. I totally understand that. But if that's your goal, we can build a marketing plan that aligns with that. But if you're just saying, well, I just want to increase revenue next year, it's pretty hard for a marketer to guess what does that look like. I know I need to add 3.3 clients a month at an average of $1,500 a month to get to my goal by 12/31/2023. That's what you need to figure out. That's my goal. That's what I need. I know. Yeah. So then my agency is all right, so you need this number of clicks on whatever, and leads that come in, prospects that come in that turn into leads and all that stuff, and the conversion rate too. So that I mean, accountants love data, so use that and make the data. You know
how to use Excel. You can figure it out.
Yeah, it's actually kind of fun. Once I realized that marketing is like almost all data driven, and I was just like, oh, this is great. How could any accountant not like this?
Yeah, it's a nice mix of it's art and science. You've got the math and the data, and then you've got the like language messaging side of things as well.
Yeah.
But once all that fun artsy stuff is like at the front end, and then after that it's all data.
Yeah,
So,
it is. Yeah.
Aaron,
one other tip that we were trying to focus on is getting reviews. Mm-hmm. I think that's like an easy thing people can do right away, just because that gives you like more authority and stuff like that on Google or Facebook. Encourage your staff, things like that. That's something we're trying to focus on.
That would be probably like, if we're looking at low hanging fruit, if you could get 2 reviews a month from your current client base on Google Maps, that can have a pretty big impact on your local search rankings. And so that's, if you're just looking for something like what to do today, that's a good place to start. Looking at the reviews in local SEO.
Yeah.
You're doing some other things, right? You've got a company, and then you've got your own podcast. Where can people find you, and what do you want to tell us about what you're up to?
So we have an account. Yeah. So we do have an accounting firm, like I said, Straight Line. We're actually currently going through a rebrand, thank God, because I do not like the name. But we have recently started a business called Owners and Operations, and it's developed to help accounting firm owners. And we're trying to change the stigma of the accounting industry, kind of, maybe want to attract people rather than, it's so difficult when you go to look for a job and you're 21 and someone's saying, well, you have to work a minimum 55 hours a week for more than a quarter of the year. How is anybody going to want to join that industry? It's just, there's so much abuse with that. So it's kind of a joke. It's not really a joke. Is we want to make it more fun so that people don't die at their desks. Because I've actually heard a lot of accountants die at their desks. So we have a course that to help firm owners build the right foundations. It's kind of like the prequel to marketing to set you up so you can do marketing. And then we also have a podcast, which is really fun, Owners and Operations. But if you do, I actually gave a discount code. So if anybody is listening to your thing, wanted to join our course, or we have a workshop too, a KPI workshop, a couple days coming up, there's discount codes. I think it's Benchmark that I use a code, but I'll give it to you. So yeah, it's just fun. We have fun. The podcast is super laid back. We have some really cool guests coming up. Yeah, that's it. So
good. You said you're on Facebook, so it's the best way to find the group. Is it through
so we have
or something, right?
We have a private Facebook group. I'll give you the link, so if you want to put it in your show notes, you can. But it's just Owners and Operations, or you can just DM me. My sister looks at it. And then we also, we have all the other shit, LinkedIn, Instagram, things like that. But we're primarily on Facebook with the group and things like that. But yeah.
Facebook, this will be my last marketing point. Facebook groups are great right now because the Facebook algorithm, this is, strike while the iron's hot. The algorithm really prioritizes group content. And so this is another tip if you're in an accounting firm, starting a group for your niche. Once they join, they're going to see your content in their Facebook feed a lot more often than if you're posting on your page or your personal account. So.
Yeah, I actually heard a good tip that your page is kind of like your website. It's there to go to. You can post to it. But if you actually want traction on Facebook, it's your personal and then the group. So groups are very popular. But it's also it's kind of funny. I remember when I had I have an autoimmune disease, and when I first got it, I got most of my medical advice from Facebook groups, but they actually really helped me. So from then on, I was sold. People were like, you get medical advice from Facebook, but it actually worked. So
yeah, this podcast is going to get one of those warnings.
I know. Oh God. Yeah, you can edit that out, but groups are the way to go. You can definitely get in front of your audience that way.
Yeah, groups are great. Well, Aaron, this is great. I think it's super helpful. It's always good to talk to accounting firm owners.
Yeah.
I work with a lot of accounting firm owners. That's our niche.
And you're a story brand agency.
Yeah, well, I actually have 2 agencies. We split ours in because we needed to niche in a sense. So we have one web design and development company, and we do websites for any industry, any business.
Okay.
It's a StoryBrand agency. I do some of the work, and then we work with other StoryBrand guides.
Okay.
And then Benchmark Growth Marketing is marketing for accounting firms. We don't label ourselves as much. I'm a certified StoryBrand guide, and it's a tool that I use with every single client that I work with. But most of the accounting firms we work with don't know much about StoryBrand, and so we talk about the importance of clear messaging, but we're a little less like StoryBrand, what's the word, centric in our own marketing and branding because of the way that we've positioned in our own messaging and our niche. But yeah, if folks are listening to this and you don't know what StoryBrand is, there's a book. You've probably been offered it before, or someone's mentioned it. It's like, to be honest, that's like marketing 101. If you don't know anything about marketing and you just need to have a little bit better understanding of where to start from, like, it's probably the best place to begin if I had to give a recommendation.
You Marketing Made Simple you're talking about, or the
Marketing Made Simple? Well, I think the StoryBrand book itself, just understanding how important how you communicate to your audience is, and what makes a difference. I also find it's the thing that gets people excited about marketing. Marketing Made Simple is like tactical. That's their other book. But StoryBrand is, if you need to be inspired to care about marketing, that's what you should.
And you should. I think, I will say, you should, if you are a firm owner and you want to grow it all, you should have some type of marketing plan in place.
Yes. And if you need to get a marketing plan, you can reach out to us, or you can reach out to Erin. She can give you recommendations as well. And she can, we haven't worked together, so you don't know how good I am at marketing, but I know that you've got a good agency.
I've heard you're good. You do some PASBA members, right?
Yep, we've got I think 4 or 5 PASBA member clients right now. So all right, awesome. This is good. I think we can leave it there. This has been the marketing podcast for accounting firms, and you can find us on LinkedIn. You can find Erin on Facebook, and there'll be links and things in the show notes. So, all right, have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks.
This podcast, Marketing for Accounting Firms, is brought to you by Benchmark Growth Marketing, a marketing agency that helps accounting firms get more calls booked through their website. You can find us at benchmarkgrowthmarketing.com. Connect with me, Matt Banker, on LinkedIn.